Alright guys, welcome back to the Jam Cave studio, here deep inside the heart of the Jazz Mountain. And tonight, we're gonna jam. And I know we always jam on the show actually because, that's kind of the whole thing. It's Jazz Mountain after all. But tonight it's gonna be just a little extra special and a little different because we're starting a new series here called Monster Jams. And there's gonna be a couple rules to these shows. First and foremost, each song to qualify as a true monster jam has to be at least 20 minutes long, and also we're only ever going to play 2 songs. So it's going to be the easiest show I've ever made because we do a little intro here, play a jam, talk a little more between the songs, and then that's it, right? So DJ Benzen gets to relax tonight and rock out with y'all a little more. Don't have to worry too much about talking. We'll let the music tell the story tonight. So it's going to be our first time doing this. The first one barely makes the cut. This song clocks in at 20 minutes even, but, still counts, right? And I figured we might as well start with the grandfather jam band, right? The guys who really started it all, the good old Grateful Dead. And in my opinion, the Grateful Dead really did invent jam bands, or at least the formula of a jam band. Playing 2 sets in an encore, different set lists every night. They have songs they play, like a blues or a rock song, and then they extend it with improvised parts, and, it's however long. And the Grateful Dead didn't just, play solos. Other bands would, make songs longer live and stuff like that and play around a little bit. But what the Dead did that was a little different was that they took things way the fuck out there, right? And they were pretty ahead of their time too, I'd say, because in jazz, Bitches Brew is 1970. So Miles Davis kind of invented the really far out there, crazy psychedelic jazz vibe with that album. But in 1967, 68, especially by 69, the Dead were really already playing these crazy, weird, deep, long, introspective, exploratory, crazy jams that were totally psychedelic. And Miles Davis did it in 1970, but I don't know, call me crazy, but I think the Dead were maybe even a little ahead of the curve. I'm no scholar or historian, so I can't tell you exactly where the Dead falls, in terms of the history of music and jamming, but to my knowledge, it's pretty revolutionary stuff. And this song is going to be playing in the band, one of their best jam vehicles. And actually, when it debuted on February 18th, 1971 at the Cap in Port Chester, it wasn't really a jam vehicle back then, just a song, And as time went on, especially in 72, it became a solid 8 to 12 minute one with a little nice jam on there. It got kind of psychedelic, but it wasn't until May of 72, I believe, when they really took it out, and then especially in later years. This one's from 1973, from March 16th, and it's fucking crazy. And it's only 20 minutes, exactly 20 minutes, but it goes places, They have other versions that are in the 30s and 40s. I think the longest one's 46 minutes. I thought about playing that one, but, it's a little too long. And like always, I listened to 30 versions of playing in the band to get it just right for you guys because you guys deserve the best. And this was my favorite, I love this version. I found it on the Music Never Stopped compilation that came out last year. So check that out. Some good tracks on there. A little too much 80s dud maybe, but their picks are solid. And this one really stood out to me. And I wanted to play a Bobby song because we never did a Jazz Mountain Bob Weird tribute. So this song will serve as that for us. So thanks for everything, Bobby. We love you. And I really like starting Jazz Mountain shows with the Grateful Dead. It just feels right to me. I don't know. It's awesome. So here we go, guys. Let's go to outer space and start this new series, Monster Jams. And we'll take a little break and talk for a minute. And then we have a really long and really crazy and really intense one after that. That's really a monster jam. This one, it goes a couple different places. A lot of cool, unique playing. Jerry has awesome parts and Phil's laying it down. And the whole band just, creates that unique Grateful Dead texture of sound where everyone's playing kind of different stuff, but it all comes together. But the next track after this is really worth sticking around for. I promise you, it's going to be nuts. But without further ado, guys, this one's from the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, up in Long Island, on March 16th, 1973. This is Jazz Mountain, guys. Thanks for listening. Let's do this.
Trust reason, others trust your mind. I don't trust nothing, but I know it come out right. Saying once
All right, so that's the Grateful Dead setting the table for us on Jazz Mountain's Monster Jams. And that's just a really great version, right? It just hits that exact sweet spot for a playing in the band that I like. Some get kind of spacey in the middle, which I don't hate, but like for Jazz Mountain, I like to rock a little more. So that one's just like nice and creative and nice and, interesting throughout. And 1973 is such a great year for the Dead. Phil sounds so good on that track, right? And Jerry's doing all this really cool, creative stuff with interesting tones, and like he does these little runs that come out of nowhere and you're like, how the hell did he think of that? And then the whole band sounds really well together just as a cohesive unit, and it's just like pure magic, right? And Jerry's pipes sound awesome in that year too. I know that was a Bobby song, but I swear Jerry Garcia's voice in 1973 is angelic, and he plays that really cool Fender guitar. I'm actually looking right now at my wall. I have a picture of him in this cool skeleton jacket, and he's playing the, Harley Davidson Fender, and that's my favorite guitar he has, besides maybe Wolf. But I think he plays it at that show. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure. And if in the comments below, if you know what guitar he was actually playing, or if it's that, just let me know, because we're trying to get you guys to comment more. It helps the algorithm so more people can be exposed to this great music that's on Jazz Mountain, right? I don't do it for me. I do it for you guys, I think, right? It's fun, but like I don't need any money. I just like want to spread the love. So that's kind of the idea behind doing the show, And so now that we've had just a couple seconds here to relax and get our bearings, let's really take off, because this next one is one of the craziest jams ever. Basically, it's 50 minutes long, and it's one of the best versions of this song of all time, from one of the band's best years. So we're going to go from the Grateful Dead, the band that kind of started the jam band thing, to my personal favorite jam band, and to the band that really kind of took the torch from the Dead in a way, right? Jerry passed away in 95, and this song is from 95. And it's actually from June 14th, so less than a month before Jerry died. So this is right there at the end of Jerry's life, and Fish was doing this, which is crazy because, a lot of people compare Fish and the Dead, and I understand why, because they have the same formula, right? And they are jam bands, but they couldn't sound more different, in my opinion, for a lot of different reasons. And you'll really hear that difference in these two styles of jamming. I don't even know what to call this style that's about to come up, because like Fish or not, and I really mean this, like even if you hate Fish, you have to respect the balls with which they play and the places they go and the chances they take. And actually, even if you hate them, I still think you have to admit they're good at music. Like they're really great musicians and they play so well together, and they just have so many crazy ideas and they pull it off so well. So even if you don't like the sound, I think you have to be able to be like, okay, that's wild. And they're good at what they do. Maybe you don't want to admit that and you just actually hate it, but like I find that kind of hard to believe. Granted, I'm a little biased. Fish is my favorite band, but this jam is just like so cool and so unique. And it really, really is wild. So we should probably have like a 1-800 number, like a hotline to call if you're listening to this, because like it's going to freak you out a bit. So call 1-800 Jazz Mountain Rules, and you can talk to DJ Benzen here, and I'll tell you, just 36 more minutes and you'll be back to your normal life and everything will be fine. Just hang in there. Maybe drink a cup of tea or take a couple deep breaths, or maybe take a shower or something, because this one is like just so strange, basically, and it like really just like messes with your mind. I don't know. And in fact, as a band right now, they don't play like this anymore. They have their own kind of style, that's like the 3.0, or some people even call it 4.0 style, and I love it. It's still great, but back then in 1995, it was a different level. And it was like way more powerful and syncopated and dissonant and like just strange and surprising and creative and just everything. And this song is actually probably why I even created the Monster Jam special anyway, because I've been wanting to play this one for a long time, but I was like, how in the hell am I going to play a 50-minute song in the middle of a regular Jazz Mountain? I think I have to create my own kind of show for it. So here we are. And it's from June 14th, 1995 at the Mud Island Amphitheater in Memphis. And actually, the topography or location of this venue actually probably lent to a little bit of like the feeling of the show, because people at the show said that it was like super fucking hot and humid because, it's Memphis and it's like that down there. And also that there were like just heaps of bugs everywhere. So like mosquitoes were stinging people were sweating balls. I'm just imagining like a really crazy scene and just like overall chaos. And then they come out and jam this. And it's kind of funny because it's sandwiched between Poor Heart an acoustic army. So Poor Heart's like a straight ahead kind of bluegrass number, just a couple minutes long. An acoustic army is acoustic. So they put away the electric stuff for a while because I think after this one, they were like, we need to cool it down. So without further ado, let's hit this one, guys. And this will conclude Monster Jams Volume 1. Thank you guys so much for your love, focus, and attention. See you on the other side.